It's already June next week.
What's that?
It's hard to believe it's June next week.
Oh, I know.
Man, like an eye. No doubt.
She is unable to connect?
Yeah, we'll go there.
Can she call her?
He just text me, says I'm on phone.
Hello, Lisa, can you hear us? Everybody's muted.
Mary, I'm on the phone. I was looking for Zoom info and didn't see on recent emails. So Robin, are you emailing her something?
I just forwarded the Zoom link. She's in the waiting room now. Can you bring her in? Okay, can you hear us, Lisa? Can you hear us? I can't hear her.
I'm good.
Good, I'm at your, all right, thank you. Let's get the meeting going then. Welcome everybody to our meeting today. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will note that all board members are in attendance here today, with Ms. Stickett and Ms. Chappelle attending via Zoom. And I will move to approve the minutes from the May 17th, 2020 board meeting. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Brian Clearly, why don't you tee it up for us on the certification of the official results for the May 4th, 2021 primary election.
Good afternoon, Brian Clary, manager of the health department. Before you should have a copy of the certification report and the official results from the May 4th primary election. There were a total of 38,307 ballots tabulated for the election, and they break down as follows. There were 21,447 ballots cast on election day. 16,127 were cast vote by mail, 202 early in person, 209 ballots were cast provisionally, 65 were cast post-election day or curbside ballots, and there were 257 that were post-vote by mail. Any questions on these totals?
I'm sorry, Brian, you said 209 were provisionals, those were curbsides?
The 65 post-election days were curbside ballots, so there were 209 actual provisional ballots cast both at the polls and early in person.
And that figure is much closer to what we typically get, less than 1%.
That is correct, yeah. It's not the anomaly we saw in November.
Terrific. Any questions for Mr. Cleary? In that case, I will move to authorize to approve the remake of the optical scan. Well, we're not there yet, are we?
Yeah, let me roll through the next two little things. Next is the vote by mail early in person summary. There were a total of 19,093 ballots issued for the election. Of those, 16,586 were returned and counted, resulting in an 88.14% overall return rate. There were 26 ballots that were challenged and 216 that were returned late, resulting in a 1.44% challenge rate. If you remove the ballots that were returned late, that challenge rate drops down to 0.16%. There were 2,265 ballots that were never returned for the election. And then you have a chart there detailing the 26 challenged, the reasons they were challenged. Any questions on the vote by mail or early in person summary? I'll take them. Hearing none, I'll move on to the provisional. There were a total of 219 provisional ballots cast during this election. There were 217 cast on election day and 2 cast early in person here at the main building. Of those ballots, 209 or 95.43% were valid and tabulated by the ballot department. There were a total of 10 invalid provisional ballots, resulting in a 4.57% rejection rate for the election. If you remove out the individuals who had already cast a vote by mail ballot, if we weren't registered for the election, that rejection rate drops down to 0.48%. And of the 10 rejections, you can see the breakdown of the 3 categories they fell into on the chart below. Any questions on the provisional? Hearing none. During the election, there were 42 ballot sheets that were processed in accordance with the ballot remake policies approved by the board. That breaks out to a 0.253% remake rate for the election. And of the 42, you have 2 charts that show you the individual 11 categories they fall into, and then when they were cast, whether unofficial or official candidates. There were a total of 4 overvotes for the election, resulting in a 0.01% overvote rate. There were a total of 196 precincts involved in the election, and voter history will be completed upon certification. Ballot reconciliation will also be completed upon certification. There were no automatic recounts for the election. The requested recount deadline is Tuesday, June 1st, moved back a day because of the holiday at 4 p.m. And the post-election audit is scheduled for Monday, June 14th at 9 a.m. There will be no random selection for this. We feel the only race that falls under the criteria for the Secretary of State's election official manual is for member of council Parma Ward 7, so that will be the race in which we audit on that date. The rest of the report is just historical data. I'll take any questions that you have.
Just a typical, you don't audit issue.
The Secretary of State, according to his election official manual, they would like a statewide candidate issue or candidate race. And if there's none of that, then they go to candidate race. They want the issues to be the last thing on the ballot. They will audit.
And that was the only
I
candidate.
think this was the only candidate race that we chose that to audit
Understood.
as part of this.
Great.
And the audit isn't required. But again, we audit everything because that's how we stay strong with what we do.
And the additional information is historical data and the actual results, Brian.
Yes, it's just comparing like elections to the various municipal made primaries that we've had over the years, and they're not apples to apples, but it's the closest we can get because not all the cities are in the same election. So that's how the criteria goes for that.
All right, we're ready for some motions, right?
We are.
All right, I'll move to authorize to approve the remake of the optical scan ballots from the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second. Second. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'll move to authorize to approve the absentee ballots from the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'll move to authorize to approve the provisional ballots from the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second. Second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. I'll move to acknowledge the pre and post test results for the voter tabulation system from the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second. Second. Okay, any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm just gonna abstain because I didn't see them, so I didn't get it, so I apologize.
Did you email them to?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, then, can we does this have to be done today?
We have certified today.
Okay, so we need to email those then, if you could, Mary, right now, please. So Mary's gonna email those.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I just need to take a look
If you
at it.
review them, if you have to review them. Oh, you need to run them off? Okay, we're gonna have to, all right, thank you. All right, we'll hold off on that. And then I will move to acknowledge the date, time, and place of the post-election audit for the May 4th, 2021 primary election. Is there a second? Okay, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. I'll move on to, thank you, Ryan, we can't certify yet until that gets out, and so we'll circle back. Candidate and petition services, I will move to acknowledge the resignation from and appointment to elected offices. That would be the resignation of Shayla Davis from Garfield Heights Council and the appointment of Lori Bendel to the Chagrin Falls Exempted Village School District. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. I'll move to acknowledge the candidate withdrawal from the August 4th, 2021 special congressional primary election. If there's a second. Hearing no, thank you for that second, Mr. Wondolowski. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. I will move to approve to appoint not less than 2 precinct election officials for each precinct pursuant to the revised code 350122 for the August 3rd, 2021 special congressional primary election. If there's a second. Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to fiscal. I'll move to, and this has been discussed prior to, we did receive Ms. Lucy's approaching. Do you want to tee anything up there, Kendra, the board, or?
No, I just wanted to say these are purchase 6 additional text model 72s. We utilized 3 from grant money previously, and this is utilizing the CTCL grant appropriation to purchase 6 of them.
Terrific. I will move to, I'm going to just get through this motion to approve the purchase of those 6 OPEX Model 72. Their mail rapid extraction desks plus maintenance costs through December 31st, 2023 in the amount not to exceed $220,969.64, utilizing the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant funding. If there's a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. And I know last week we received a draft of the contract. We received a final form. Today, Mark, is there anything you want to comment about the 50-page contract?
Yes, there were some issues with the indemnity and limitation on liability. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review it, or if you guys have any questions. It was kind of a work in progress, and there's some communication issues. So we were flying back and forth on landing on some language that was agreeable to both parties. This was what we were able to achieve prior to this meeting. And I can kind of walk through those protections if you'd like. The indemnity, it's a $220,000 contract for the purchase and maintenance through the end of 2023. So there is an indemnity and hold harmless and limitation on liability that gets a little bit confusing. It's not artfully drafted, and there's a couple of different ways we can go with this. But basically the protections will save the board and they'll defend us from liability or from any claims that results from their conduct. However, the limitation on liability in the damages section carves out the maximum amount of, the caps the amount of our damages, which is just our direct damages, not the indemnity liability to a third party. at $500,000 where it's personal injuries or damage to property. It's uncapped where there's the breach of the confidentiality obligations, which primarily protects the contractor, not us. But there's carve outs for public records law and all the other transparency obligations that the board has to fulfill. And then gross negligence or willful misconduct, which is also uncapped. I'm not given a very organized description here, so I apologize. But otherwise, the liability is capped at the amount that is paid under the contract, which is something you see a lot of these vendors fighting for. They want their exposure to be limited to the amount that they've been paid. The warranty is 30 days, but then the maintenance services kick in, which primarily provides warranty-like services on the equipment through the end of 2023.
We haven't had any operational issues with the 3 other machines we purchased previously.
We have not.
Do they install these or they just deliver them?
Installed.
I thought these were new. Are these, we've used these before?
We currently have 3 that we obtained
Oh.
last year. And now we're adding an additional 6 to the 3 that we have. So we'll have 9 total.
What
So,
was the
so
concern?
can we, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with the contract language. I'll just tell you that. I mean, I just, I don't know I don't recall what we had in the last agreement. I just think, we've now got a contributory negligence kind of provision in here. I think the cap on the contract damages is inappropriate. We can't, we've already said, there's language that says it, you're only liable for actual damages. So why we would have a cap on top of that, we don't really know what it's going to look like. I think, there's a disclaimer even as to the, I get the, limiting damages to some extent, but the warranty, to disclaim, there's no warranty of merchantability or fitness. We're buying the stuff because it's got to be fit for its intended purposes. Maybe I just got this way too late at the last minute. I think there's actually some language that needs to be married up. In the indemnification provision, there's language, at least in the last version I saw, where the successful vendor, but the contract parties are defined. So I'm assuming we're talking about the contractor, which is OPEX, shall agree.
She froze up. What we can do.
Around the language that I'm seeing here.
Sorry, Joe, you froze up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You froze up for about 15 seconds there, so I don't know if you said something we didn't hear.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just said that the, in the indemnification provision, I have a couple concerns. One, I think my last comment was, I'm sorry, it says Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just, some of it was just, my last comment was around marrying up the language to, instead of the successful vendor, we actually have defined parties now. So I think you've defined OPEX as the contractor. But my concern there was, shall agree to indemnify. And that sounds like they're agreeing, it's, in the future, they are agreeing by reason of signing the contract. Just a little wordsmithing issue there. But my overall concern was, I don't know that we've ever signed a contract, or at least I don't recall, where we've agreed to have some, contributory negligence provision in it, where somehow the vendor gets to reduce their liability to the extent our people may or may have not been contributory toward the. I just don't recall seeing this kind of language in any prior agreement. So I would be concerned that we're starting to have that kind of process. Also, I know the language says they're going to indemnify and save us harmless from suits or actions, but normally we would see claims in there. There's in the provision where they want us to be responsible for contributory negligence, they've got claims and liability, and I have it all enumerated. I just am not comfortable with that in the indemnification provision. Not comfortable with the damages cap, and not comfortable with the disclaimer of warranties. I just, maybe I got it so late, frankly, I just am not comfortable with it. So.
So when does this equipment supposed to be delivered?
Maybe Tony can help me out here, but I believe we need to place an order to get this on a production schedule. For
If it were approved today, it would be available on August 23rd.
The machines would be available on this 23rd.
Would be ready to be installed by then.
And what, this grant money has to be used by a certain date,
It does have to be used by June 30th.
June 30th.
Encumbered.
Encumbered.
Encumbered,
It
not
can't be,
spent, but set aside for
right,
that.
and it can't be encumbered until we enter a contract,
That's correct.
right? Because you won't pay them until you get it delivered and installed.
Correct.
I see. I mean, so I understand I'm Joe's concerns. I think we did get it. I'm not faulting anybody, but we got it later this morning and it's 58 pages. And this could go back, I mean, Mark could go back to them and say, hey, the board members have these issues. We give Ina Joe more time than the other board members to email you about their concerns. I'm just, we discussed this at June 14th, that it'd still give you time, but it's going to push back your delivery date then, possibly.
Yes, and the issues I've had with our new Infor system, I'm not comfortable with that turnaround time as far as getting it approved in the system.
What's Infor? You need the new.
That's our new procurement
Procurement
and accounts payable, our general ledger system the county has. It's proven to take longer than you expected to get things through the process.
Here's my question. I assume we had a similar, do we have a similar agreement when we purchased the other three? What's wrong with the agreement we had?
It was not as lengthy, it was, they have changed some of their.
Could somebody repeat that? I couldn't hear what you said.
I hear either.
We had a number of terms in our invitation of bid that they took exception to. Previously, we did not go through this process where we provided terms. We changed the approach to the procurement that we initially did before.
So is there indemnity language in the first contract?
I have to double check. I'm sure.
If there was no cap on damages in the other contract, if the indemnification provision was our basic provision, if they didn't disclaim any warranties with respect to, the prior purchase, frankly, I'm for rolling with the prior agreement. But, I just feel like, I hate when vendors do that. They get in the door, the relationship's fine to get in the door, the contract's fine to get in the door, and then they get here, and then all of a sudden, we have to start giving contract concessions. I'm not comfortable with it personally. So.
Who'd you deal with, in-house counsel or their, Mark, who attorneys did you deal with?
Their legal, chief of legal affairs. I'm not sure if she's attorney or paralegal, but they're
in-house.
Chief legal, yeah, in-house.
I think once before we did approve something with some kind of caveat that the prosecutor's office was to come up with mutually agreeable
Legal
terms.
terms and conditions. Purely legal, not like the business end of it has been approved, but the legal terms would be acceptable and maybe condition that with Ina Joe being. Sorry?
Mark, are you comfortable with the contract?
It's not artfully drafted, but I think the purchase that's involved and the risk that this type of equipment poses to us, I'm comfortable with it, but that's not like, I'm just a lawyer, not the policymaker.
I mean, you brought it to us to pass, right? So I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm asking, are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it, yes.
So what's the concern with this equipment? Is it someone that actually get physically hurt because it deals with slicing and dicing and all that stuff? Is that it?
I think,
Brian, why don't you come?
Brian,
I mean, so this could hurt somebody. I mean, someone could get cut.
Yes.
yeah, I don't think it's a great chance of it, but
Yeah, it's got safety guards and everything on it, but if you were, someone stick your fingers in the machine, there are 2 points where it could cut you. It does drop in, slice, and then come over and slice. And, there are moving parts. You keep your fingers closely caught in there. If anything's possible, yeah.
That's where the indemnity comes in the concern. If someone could get hurt, it's not going to change our vote
Workers'
counts.
comp claim, if something.
Well, it is a
Right.
vote count. You got insurance. I mean, that's,
With
I don't know that
the
someone.
community with workers' comp.
Right.
So we comply with our workers' comp.
I mean,
Unless there's a specific safety.
I appreciate your concerns, I know, Joe, I understand them certainly. But I'm also trying to balance staff is saying, hey, if I don't get it past then, you do it in June, I'm concerned I'm not gonna get it encumbered, and then we lose a couple $100,000. That's what I'm hearing, so.
Yeah, and I don't want to, my comfort level isn't your comfort level, and I'm sorry you're put in this position, and there's a couple of ways we could have.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
just would hope that, don't bring us inartfully drafted contracts. I mean, that's not I'm very disappointed. I mean, from my perspective, they really shouldn't. It should be in final form. It should be drafted appropriately. And, if we're expected to sign off on it, I just have a concern about that. But I understand if you guys, in the interest of time, need to move forward, we can just, we can take the vote. We'll just have, just have to be voting my conscience on it. So, no
Well,
worries.
we've got a motion. Thank you, Anna. Do we have a
I had a
motion?
question.
Second?
I had a question.
Please.
Okay, sorry, guys. We can't wait till June. I apologize. I tried to hear. I know sometimes it's hard. People are standing in different places there. If we got the order in at the next meeting, though, the concern isn't so much missing the deadline. The concern is getting it available as soon as sort of the time frame when it would be available and up and running. So we could still get it through in June. I guess that's just my question.
Kendra is a representative to the board that if it's passed on June 14th, which is
Right.
our next meeting,
Right.
that she's concerned that she can't process it through the processing system by June 30th, 2.5 weeks. And if she doesn't get it to get it encumbered, and if it's not encumbered, we lose the money.
Okay. I guess the question then is why was this rush this morning? I mean, any insight as to that? Is it just because we were trying to negotiate with the vendor or their counsel?
There has been several back and forth between OPEX and us, going back and forth with Mark and council, trying to work through these general terms and conditions, I think.
Yes, and there were some communication issues that I take responsibility for, and I do apologize for the position that you're being placed in, and I understand the concern, and I suggest maybe we can conditionally approve this and iron out these legal terms and conditions in a way that the board members are comfortable with.
If I could say, I'm not comfortable. If for purposes of the time frame, I would consider that, but I agree with Ina Jo's comments and concerns. Also, to have some inartful language, as we've discussed, is a problem in a contract of this size. So in the future, I mean, I think as long as we're all on the same page, we can have a little more time to digest. I'd be more comfortable, but I understand we're up against the time frame too. So maybe in this instance, this is when we can look to do that. But I do agree with her concerns.
So we can conditionally approve the language, the contract?
You could approve the business terms of the contract, and then if you are comfortable delegating the authority to negotiate legal terms and conditions that are acceptable to council, and I would make sure that the board members who have concerns with these legal terms and conditions are comfortable with a final agreement.
All right, what you said. How's that? All right,
Well,
go ahead, David.
I think it's important to understand, we're represented by the prosecutor's office. I mean, we're not, although there are 3 attorneys on this board, the prosecutor's office makes these, negotiates these agreements. And we have to be cognizant of that.
I mean, some points are well taken. I know Ina Jo and I, and been here a long time, I haven't had an issue with a contract or an indemnification issue before. And I see the unlikely possibility of occurring with this sort of equipment, but we haven't had any injuries in the last year we've used it, have we?
We have not.
Right. So I acknowledge the comments of Ms. Thicken and Ms. Chappelle concerning the language, but I'm okay with going ahead with this. And approving it, I mean, conditionally, and allowing you, approving the business terms and conditions of the contract, and authorizing our legal counsel to negotiate further terms and conditions concerning damages, disclaimers, and indemnification. Include, but
No,
Go ahead.
he's gonna clean up some of the inartful language.
Right,
That's what he's
right.
gonna do.
But, yes,
Nobody's gonna negotiate anything else. We're approving the business terms today,
right.
right?
Yes, I would,
Black and white, right?
I want to go ahead with the
Okay.
arrangement. I mean,
You-
despite some of the concern fellow board members.
Just a question.
Go
What
ahead,
are we,
Joe.
what are we calling in art? Are we calling in art? To me, these are not just, wordsmithing issues. I mean, to say it's in artful language, there's a cap. That's a substantive issue. Are we delegating to our council our approval of the cap or a change in terms of, I guess I'm not really sure what we're approving just the business terms, and we are going to allow council to determine whether the indemnification provision is sufficient, the cap is sufficient, those things. Is that what I'm hearing? Whether there can be a disclaimer of warranties?
That's what you're hearing, and I'd agree with you. I don't know that we can conditionally approve a contract. We either prove it or don't prove it based on the language that's in front of us, period. I mean,
We're approving the content here. If it's wordsmithed and rewritten in a more artful manner, that's fine, but right now, this is what we're reading.
Right, I agree.
This is all we can approve.
right, that's all we can approve what we have. We have, in fact, what has been sent to us earlier, probably not 2 hours ago, was the final contract, right? What we have in front of us here is the red line version.
Correct.
All right, I will move. I understand the concerns. I also want to balance staff's concerns about getting this money encumbered, not losing the opportunity to spend it, and then having it delivered at the end of August so we can use it for the election in November. So I've made a motion, to second by Mr. Wondolowski. There's been extensive discussion and some very good comments about the indemnification disclaimer and a cap language in here and its insufficiency, but nevertheless, I will move ahead. There is some protection here for the county, so I'm going to move ahead and vote yes on the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, saying
I'm opposed.
I had a question. So we're not, because I apologize, we're not going to be able to negotiate any of these terms then? Because I thought there's going to be some attempt to clean some of this up. We're just agreeing to the business terms. I mean, I just want to be clear.
no. So what we're going to do is approve the contract as submitted to us 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Red line version, we've had that since last week,
Right.
and that's the motion. So we're not
Okay.
asking him to change terms and conditions. We're going to vote, present it to us. And Dave and I have done that despite some of the very good points both of you have made about some of the shortcomings of the contract. And Ina Jo has voted no, so we need your vote, Lisa.
Yes, no, I'm going to vote with you yes at this point, but I have reservations and I put them on the record. And I just don't want to be in that position again. I understand the time constraints. So those are my comments for the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stickens. So the vote passes 3-1. Ms. Chappelle's and Ms. Stickens' comments are certainly part of this record, and their concerns are so noted. And I know they're noted by Mr. Musson too. So thank you. All right, we'll move on to the approval of vouchers that are set forth in our agenda, and I will approve the vouchers as set forth. If there's a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any questions or comments about the vouchers? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. There was a walk-on item that I had failed to mention. It was a directive we just received today, I believe, from the Secretary of State. It's Directive 2021-15, dated May 25th, 2021. And it provides the certified form of the official ballot to be used in the August 3rd, 2021 special congressional primary election in October in Ohio's 11th and 15th congressional districts. So it's only sent to a portion of the county boards of elections here in the state of Ohio. I will move to adopt that directive 2021-15. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment for the staff from the board members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. And on to new business, election equipment demonstration update.
Good afternoon. As a reminder, the election demonstration for the new voting equipment is set for this Thursday, May 27th. On your way in, you may have noticed the first floor booths area are already set up for Thursday's event. The vendors, Hart InterCivic, ES&S, and Clear Ballot will be arriving to set up their equipment tomorrow afternoon. The event is broken into two portions. Our morning session is for the trainers and election day workers and includes additional time allocated for setting up the equipment and tearing it down. We have about 35 trainers and election day workers scheduled for that session. In the afternoon, which runs from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., that portion is open to the general public. We've invited elected officials and voter advocacy groups, and plus our BOE staff will be attending that session as well. The goal is to replicate the election day experience for voters. They will vote a simple ballot, an ice cream ballot, their favorite superhero, and so forth, and then scan it into each of the three voting equipments. Everyone will be asked to complete a simple simple survey regarding their experience. The media has also been invited. BOE staff will be parking at Campus International, so that that parking lot will be, for the most part, available for visitors. So everyone in the committee has worked hard, and we're excited about the day, and I think it'll be a good event.
Thank you. This is our last public event when it comes to this equipment.
That is correct.
Purchase. And when do we anticipate a recommendation at some point? Do you have a?
I think we should have a recommendation sometime in July or August.
And while, I know we're going to get to more new business, Mary, has that been emailed to Lisa? Oh, okay, and so I just want to let Ina, Joe, and Lisa know at some point you can take a look at those tabulations because we'll circle back to certify the vote. Have you received the emails?
I reviewed them. I received it and reviewed it. It's fine. Yeah.
Lisa, you're good?
Yes, I'm looking.
Terrific. All right. Thank you. Let's, Mr. Director Pilati, then, employee performance evaluation?
Sure. So I just want to give you an update on employee performance evaluations. We did not do evaluations last year as we were facing the challenges of conducting the first pandemic presidential election cycle. And so we're going to get back on track with doing those. But prior to getting evaluations out to the employees, we wanted to make some forms to make them what we believe to be more effective. And so we have two versions of our forms. We have a non-supervisory form and a supervisory form. It's working with Tony Gallagher and Lori Acosta. What we've done is we've looked at the evaluation criteria that we had on the forms and tried to combine some of those because I think they were confusing and they were kind of repetitive. So we cleared up that language so it's easier for employees and managers to utilize. And also what we've done is we've taken away the number rankings that we had on those forms and the overall score for the employees. And what we've done is replace those with verbal categories. And those categories are consistently above average, sometimes above, consistently above standard, sometimes above standard. Standard needs some improvement, it needs significant improvement. And what we feel like, or what I hope is by getting rid of those numbers and the overall rankings that the managers and supervisors, they go through, they can focus on the actual category at hand and mark it accordingly instead of trying to, or sometimes they try to come up with a overall ranking or score for the employee in the end, and then they kind of back end into it. Don't want that. Want it to be a tool where actually you get constructive feedback on those categories. So I'm hopeful that that will happen and make it something where it improves the relationship and the expectations between supervisors and their workforce. Also, what we're doing now is we are asking employees to self-evaluate. And so last Friday, Lori emailed out to the employees the form. They are to complete a self-evaluation, provide it to their supervisors by this Friday, and then the supervisory team, each department, the manager, assistant managers, and supervisors will sit down with that and craft the actual then evaluation for the employee, taking that self-evaluation into consideration. Then we'll sit down with the employees and share that with them. And while we know this Friday, we want the self-evaluations back, we don't have a hard deadline for the rest of that process. However, we do want it done by the end of June. So we have talked with the managers, assistant managers, and supervisors, explained to them our expectations and how this process will work. And hopefully there'll be a little bit better, less animosity amongst employees and their supervisors than in the past, because they're not just looking and comparing, well, you got a 3.2 and I got a 3.3, why? You know, we want it to actually be a little bit better tool. So that is, I just want to make you aware that that's going on now, and we changed that up a little bit, and hopefully that'll be good.
Terrific. And just, I think I've mentioned to this board members and to let the staff know, we're gonna evaluate the director, deputy director too, okay? So if everybody gets evaluated. Here.
Can't wait to carve these guys up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important that we all have feedback. It's a two-way street because everybody has expectations and we want to know what their staff's expectations are. You want to know what board's expectations are. So thank you for that. I think it's an important thing to get done once a year. It gives everybody the opportunity to kind of sit down and work together.
Sure.
Anything else?
I do have one other item of new business, and it has to do with our Board of Elections holiday schedule. And this is relatable to right now, the county council has a meeting. It started at 2 o'clock, and one of the items on the county council agenda is ordinance 2021-0005. And that ordinance has two main pieces to it, and that will impact the employee handbook for the county executives department. The first deals with the addition of an county poll worker program to their manual. I participated in a county council committee meeting last week where I took questions from that. And basically last November, we had this program in place. It was a one-time program for that election. It worked out very well for us here and was good for the citizens and voters of this county. So what the county council and county executive will be looking, or what the county executive introduced to council members for them to take up today, is actually putting that in the employee handbook. And the poll worker program would then be something that would be in their handbook and employees could take advantage on for all elections going forward. So we're excited for that to be introduced, and hopefully that will pass and we'll be able to take advantage of that. I do have a meeting. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do have something on the books for next Thursday with Jesse Drucker, the Human Resources Director for the county, just to talk about HR in general, and then if this passes, how we will work together to facilitate it. But the other piece of that ordinance has to do with the county is looking to add June 19th to their schedule of paid holidays and for the county executive departments. And so we looked and we asked also around a little bit. The county prosecutor is looking to follow suit with the county executive on that. And what I would like for this board to consider today is adding Juneteenth also to our schedule of paid holidays. And so basically, so what we do is we match the county executive schedule and their employee handbook as it will be in 2021 for our employees here. If we do that, I know they're taking that up today, but if we can do something where we match whatever they land, then when that does become effective, we could roll that here for our staff.
So they haven't approved it yet. They're considering adopting Juneteenth as a recognized holiday to the county employees.
Today, actually, at a 2 o'clock meeting
And
today.
what you're asking, I mean, it's kind of a walk on, but you're asking this board to adopt whatever holidays the county council has approved that this board would approve.
Is correct.
Okay.
Yes,
And the one change, and right now we're consistent with the county council. Is that correct?
that is correct.
The only difference would be if they decide Juneteenth should be a recognized holiday.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the motion is.
Contingent upon the county passing.
Right, the motion is that this Board of Elections adopt, have as holidays, the same holidays the county council has approved for its employees going forward. And I will second Mr. Wondolowski's motion. We there any questions or comments about it?
I just want to say, I do think the county should be consistent too. I mean, I think all county agencies, I didn't realize it was by agency, so I learned something about that. I think if the county and the executive and the county council sets it, you have some departments and some not opting in, that would be strange to me. So I think that's a great motion. Makes sense to me.
Thank you, Ms. Sticken. Any questions or comments, additional questions or comments? This still gives you, the staff, flexibility. I know we move days around. Sometimes, while we recognize Columbus Day, sometimes that's taken on a different day.
That is correct.
And then, and you'll have to come to the board for those changes going forward.
That's correct. We'll have the holiday, but the actual observance, when we recognize it, if there's an operational conflict, that's when we'll come forward and try to change the observance.
Okay, then. So, there may be an additional holiday on the calendar. We'll find out today.
We should.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Any other new business?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Bajani, any comments from the public?
Chairman Hastings, no public comment.
No public comment. All right, and then let's go back to certify the election. Can't forget why we came down here. First, I'll move to acknowledge the pre and post test results of the vote tabulation systems from the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any questions or comments now? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and then I will move to certify the official results of the May 4th, 2021 primary election. If there's a second. Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, this election results are certified and going to be sent to the Secretary of State. Having no other business on our docket, I will move to adjourn till we come back on June 14th. If there's a second. Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, have a great week, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye. Take care.
Hey, did you send? I did. Did you do that?
I gave it to Tony.
Oh, Tony's. All right. Thank you.
I just stick under results.